all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our February 21st Select Board meeting. There's a sign-in sheet going around for everybody to sign in, so we have a track of the people that are attending today. The first thing on our agenda are additions or deletions to the agenda. I have one request that it's just a rearrangement of our executive sessions, and we want to bring the executive session for the purchase of the solar field after the 11th one, which is the legal counsel regarding discontinuance of Bailey Hill Road. And it's more just a matter of town council and a time frame and some of the other items that are going on. So if that's okay with the board, I'd like to move that purchase of the solar field to be the last executive session of the evening.
You need a motion?
So.
I don't know.
No.
It's just a general.
Okay, fine with me.
Everybody's on board with it.
Yep.
Approve the minutes from our February 7th Select Board meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from February 7th, 2024.
Second?
Leaves the motion and Ariana's the second. Any changes, omissions, errors, any corrections to those minutes?
I have a couple. First, I just noticed is it's dated 2023 instead of 2024.
Susan just texted me that.
Okay. Sorry, Susan. And then on page 2 of 9, line 29, Naomi is spelled incorrectly. And then on line 31, it says the Depot Street Forest, Maine. I think that should be Forced, Maine, F-O-R-C-E-D. Third word on line 31.
Anybody else have anything?
I'm not done yet, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. There was a hesitation there, Lee. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On page 5 of 9, line 17, it says that Barry Pinsky has struggled with addition his whole life. Well, that may be true. I think it should be addiction. Just want to be accurate. That was all I had.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
No.
All those in favor of approving the minutes with the corrections noted, please say aye.
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 Oh, Heather, I forgot to mention that you're with us on Zoom.
Yes, I am.
Next item is citizens' comments. If there is someone here that would like to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. Are there any citizens' comments? Just give us your name.
Karen McAllister. We realize that you're going into executive session later in the meeting to strategize with the town's lawyer regarding the 3 Allstone Quarry properties owned by the Julians. I'd like to make a statement on behalf of many of the neighbors living near them. For 3 years, we have been working with the A&R to address Act 250 violations at the 3 sites. We are currently working through the lengthy environmental court process. 351 days ago, we attended a select board meeting to alert the board about the impact the quarries were having on our lives and present mountains of evidence concerning numerous permit violations. Within the last 11 months, we have attended countless town and DRB meetings and gone on site visits. We have also endured delays brought about by the Julians switching lawyers and engineering firms and changing and then rescinding permit applications. It took 11 months for the zoning administrator to issue 7 notice of violations, including the use of unpermitted hydraulic hammers, discharging that turns the Dean Brook white, and stone processing occurring in a building only permitted for storage. Now we wait and attend more meetings as the Julians appeal the notice of violations to the DRB. Within those 11 months, illegal activities were allowed to continue without consequence to the business. We want to make sure you know, however, that there were continued consequences to the neighbors that severely impact our health and our well-being. You can revisit our affidavits to hear the specifics in case you have forgotten our very emotional testimonies. We have also been forced to pay 11 months of out-of-pocket expenses for private lawyers and experts because the town didn't act, and the Julians were allowed to keep extracting and processing without repercussions. Please keep in mind what we have gone through for the past 3 years and what we continue to go through. Keep that in the forefront of your minds when you're talking strategy with the town council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. There will be, if there's someone else that would like to speak.
Thank you, Karen. I'm Leslie Thorson. I live in Gassett. Scott and I have lived there 37 years. Good evening. I wanted to speak very briefly about the impact of the Allstone Quarry on our lives in Gassett. What was once a quiet and peaceful hamlet has become a neighborhood filled with rock hammering, backup beeping, rock tumbling, and dump trucks driving down Route 10 to Chandler Road. When we pass each other walking or running or at the grocery store, our conversations are dominated by the noise of the hammer that day or yesterday afternoon while gardening. We have spent countless hours of our free time taking photos, making phone calls, writing affidavits, and attending meetings. We have spent thousands of dollars. We want our neighborhood back. Quarries and residential neighborhoods do not mix. We ask you tonight to restore the peace in Gassett. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Yes, ma'am.
Priscilla Williamson, previously of Gassett's. My husband and I put up with the noise from the quarry for 2 years before we had to make the painful decision that we could not live there any longer. I was stranded at my home as a gardener with the sound of this rock hammer going 7 days a week from 7 to 5 every day all summer. The effect it has had on my nerves, my peace of mind, having to leave my dream house that we built 29 years ago, thinking this would be our forever home. That dream has shattered, and nothing was done. The Julians continued, despite all our efforts, to let you, Chester, know what was going on in Gassett. We are taxpayers out there, and we feel like we've had to do all the work for you, and we're getting really, really tired. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Many of us here tonight are lifelong residents of Vermont. Growing up in Vermont, I had the highest respect for the Act 250. I had the highest respect for town select boards. I had the highest respect for law enforcement. And in the last 3 years, I am wavering. We started this argument 3 or more years ago with pollution of the Dean Brook. We've been to A&R, Fish and Wildlife, Biologist Wildlife, the town of Chester. I can't even think of all the agencies we've been to. And we have not seen any cleanup whatsoever in 4 years. the people that have this quarry are not they're being convicted of the largest hazardous material waste dumping in the state of Connecticut in history. We have invited them to Chester, Vermont. And they are they're crippling us. They're making Act 250 a mockery of Act 250. And also, I think they've taken advantage of you people right here. And we have spent time, money, effort documenting, and we still have not had the state of Vermont or the town of Chester come out and test what is going into that Dean Brook River. And the first that we knew about things going into the Dean Brook stream was at the highlight of Connecticut distributing their hazardous material. We have no idea. We have documented trucks coming in the middle of the night dumping things on the Dean Brook quarry. But we have not documented anything from the town of Chester or the state of Vermont trying to do something about that and test to see exactly what it was that these people were dumping here. I guess that's all I need to say for tonight. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir, for the record, can you please state your name?
That was Mike Leclerc.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to say that,
I'm sorry, give us your name, ma'am.
State your name. for the
sorry,
record.
Roberta Alexander. Sorry about that. I just have to stop and think now because I'm,
Sorry.
eek. The fact that we have now seen a person in the dark over there, you have questions on your face, but there's a picture that apparently you haven't seen about, and I do believe it was Mr. Goodrich. I'm sure he's here somewhere. Right? Of someone with a hose dumping whatever, colored, it was white apparently at that point, into the river and hiding behind a tree when he saw his picture being taken. When I went with the group that all of us walked the quarries, when we were over there, the last stop we had, the gentleman that took us around there, he's not with us anymore, but I guess, but he was asking people to, if you had questions, ask me. So he talked about and showed us where they supposedly had fixed, and there would be no more of that dumped into the river. And he was talking about the white stuff. So I said to him, excuse me, but I said, what about the blue stuff that I see there? What's that? He looked at me and kind of a quizzical look on his face. He says, I don't know anything about blue stuff. Well, I said, I've seen it. I've seen it there. So I don't know. And then he turned on his heel and he walked away from me. And I said, sir, he continued to go. So I don't know why, but I think it ought to be checked into because obviously he didn't want to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Mike Kenworthy. After the last meeting, the memo written to the Julians saying that they were in violation was a very good letter. It hit all the points, the hammers. Great letter. The problem I see is I don't see any enforcement in there. I see $200 fines for each infraction. I don't see any mechanisms for anybody going in there to look at it, to inspect it, and given the history of the town so far, I really don't think it's going to happen. So that's the hole in this thing. Nobody's going to look at the violations and assess them. Do you have any plans? I don't know if it's a question or answer or not. I don't see any plans to send people to the properties to actually look for violations. I don't see it. I would propose, we have many energetic people in the audience. I would propose that the board deputize several people who are a lot more interested in this than you all are. And they'd be happy to photograph things, document things, take pictures, and do your job for you. We'll do it for you. Deputize us, please. Allow us, write up a little saying what we can and can't do, and then we'll pick among us who we would like to represent us, and we can be your posse, okay? You don't have to do a thing. Nothing. Just keep doing what you're doing. That's fine. But unleash the posse to look. Deputize us to be able to go on their property and look for violations and allow us to take pictures and document it and ask questions. That will fix everything. There's plenty of energy in this room. I live right now, I have 1,500 feet of border with the quarry. I'd be happy to go there once a week. I volunteer right now. I'd like to, if there's a reason why the board doesn't do it, I'd like that question addressed specifically, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Priscilla Melanson again. We can't sell, we're still paying taxes to Chester. We can't sell our home because it's directly across from the North Quarry until this is stopped. And it's put us in a great financial hardship where we can't even finish where we're living now because we don't have the money. And it's all because of this quarry.
Is there anyone else that has any other comments they would like to make?
James Wells on Zoom would.
Go ahead, sir. You must be muted. I don't hear anything coming through. Still don't hear anything.
There you go.
I think somebody just helped me out.
No, there you go.
No? My name is Jim Wells from 406 Clemens Road. I'd like to say that I'm in support of all the comments that have been made thus far tonight. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the board? I have a hard time answering a lot of the questions that you have, mainly because it's citizens' comments, and we're not really allowed to have a discussion on this. It is going to be coming up in executive session, and before the executive session, the town attorney will be addressing you folks here to give you an update as far as where we are with actions that could possibly be happening or taking. I feel bad. I feel bad as a board. I feel bad for myself that we don't have the authority to do anything magical or anything quick that we could just turn around and fix everything. Act 250 is a state law, and I realize that we do have some responsibility as a town, and I'm not trying to pass off any actions that we could be doing to someone else. We're going to try our best to do what we can to try to get this problem behind us and fixed. It's not going to be quick. It's going to take time, and that's just the way government works sometimes. Our authority is limited in these cases. The motion that was given to them for the violations is the step that we could take at this time and the way it works for the town. And the actions that are in there are fines and other items that are in there. I'm not exactly sure exactly what could be happen besides that, but we're doing what we can. I sympathize with all your concerns and what's happened and stuff, and I don't have an answer for you that's going to be able to just turn around and make everybody happy about what's happening. If you want to speak, you're going to have to come over to the microphone and give your name.
That can't be a dialogue.
Yes, ma'am.
Roberta Alexander. I just have one question. Is there any reason you can't go to this hole in the ground and take a sample?
I don't believe we're permitted.
We don't have that jurisdiction.
I'm sure there's a legal answer
It's
to
private
that, and I don't know that answer. That would be a question that I would give to our attorney when we go into executive session to see what actions we can take or can't take. I don't know the answers to a lot of the things that you mentioned about the deputizing, about pictures, about all these other things. I don't know if that's within the realm of our authority to do anything like that. Those are questions that we could ask our attorney to see what actions we can take as a board, as a town, to try to help alleviate the problems that are coming before us. I can't really get into a discussion on this. Citizens' comments is for people to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda. This one is on the agenda, but there won't be that much citizens' comments with it. So when we get to that, when the attorney gives his
Update.
statement regarding what's going to be happening, he's going to be speaking to you. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to answer some questions or not. I'm not sure how that's going to work when we get to that point.
Well, could you, when you do meet with him,
Yes.
could you ask, that is one request that we would like, and perhaps he could work or you could work with the environmental people?
We will have an in-depth conversation with the attorney regarding this matter.
Thanks.
And try to get something resolved or some kind of direction that we can go on. We've taken the first steps, and we're doing what we can, and we'll see what happens from there. One more time, sir, go ahead.
Mike Kenworthy, you say your hands are tied, but Chester's the town that issued the permit for, like, for example, that storage facility to be built that's now not in compliance. So if Chester gives a permit to a local business in the mining industry or for any industry, they can't withdraw the permit. The state has to take away their permit to cut rocks in that storage building that was permitted for a storage building. I don't see how your hands are tied. I'm sorry. I don't see why you don't go around tomorrow and just say, this is against the permit, a town permit, not a state permit.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Moving on, we're going to go to old business. And I encourage everybody to stick around when we get to executive session. The first item is going to be the Julian Corey, so we'll have a little more information then. Julie, can you take us through our old business list?
Yep, there really is no old business this time because all of your old business items are actually executive session items taking advantage of Jim while he's in town. So I have nothing.
Anybody else? All set on old business? Next item on our agenda is the economic development loan, Reed Holdings, which is redoing the Masonic home in the center of town. originally took out a $50,000 loan, I believe, to supplement some of the monies that they had in the refurbishing of that building there. And at this point, they're requesting another $25,000 to add to it because of some unexpected expenses that came up. I believe, Julie, you have contacted Bob Flint and Regional Development, who usually oversees these loans and advises us on what direction to take, and he doesn't see any problem with it, and he feels that it is a good risk and a good use of those funds. So I would entertain a motion to increase that loan from the original $50,000 to adding $25,000 more.
Is that actually what we're doing? Changing it from one,
adding
it's still a single loan, we're not providing a second loan?
No, you're still a single loan.
And I believe, what, is there a 2-year grace period?
There,
or-
the original loan had a 2-year, you agreed to a 2-year of no interest, and then at the beginning of year 3 sets at market rate.
Will this amount mature to that 3-year from the originating date or from today's date?
From today's date.
So it'll push out
The loan
the
documents are
maturement.
going to be amended today.
Yep.
To put everything into, the 2 years is going to start from the original.
Okay, that was the
Is
question.
that what your question is?
That was
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, that's not extended.
great. Move to approve the increase by $25,000 to the loan for Reed Holdings, or Reed.
Ariana's the motion. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Lee's the second. Any further discussion on it? It's going to be interesting when that building is done, because over the years that we've had it there, it's always been a tax exempt structure because we've always granted the exemption from taxes. So once this project is done, it is going to help the town's grand list and the tax base coming into town. They're preserving a lot of the architectural character of parts of the building. I think there's going to be 2 apartments there and a law office in the center of town, and refurbished with windows and paint and everything else. So it's going to really help the center of the village to make it look a little more habitated than it usually is with a lot of the empty buildings that are there and stuff. All those in favor of approving the motion as stated, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a legislative update from our Representative Heather Chase, who is also a Select Board member. Heather, would you like to take this?
Yeah, sure. And I'm a select board member for 2 more weeks or something. It's my last meeting, real meeting until town meeting. And I really have loved being a select board member and appreciate all the work you guys do. As far as the legislative update, we'll be doing this monthly, and I just want to update you on a few things. We can decide how this works, but hopefully this is the format that I chose is good for you all. One of the bills, H-289, which is the Renewable Energy Standard, is currently in Ways and Means, and we had some questions from the board on that. I've gone to a couple seminars on it, and I have deferred to Julie and had some contacts for her to discuss this with the town. It looks like it's going forward, but I don't know 100% what's going to happen to it. But Julie and Lee had some really specific questions, and so I thought it would be way better for them to talk to someone who knows this inside and out. So Julie, you have a meeting coming up?
Yes, yeah. Lee and Arnie and I are meeting with Candace Morgan on Friday.
Okay, and I was invited to that meeting, y'all,
Yes.
but I decided not to come because I'm a select board member still. So in the future, if you want me to be a part of that, I just didn't want to create a quorum, but later on I can join in on some of that discussion. H850 is an act related to transitioning education financing to a new system for pupil weighting. And this has been in the news a lot. I think the legislature is quite concerned about the Act 127 that was enacted. It was before my time in the legislature, so the last session, and some of the factors that went into this could be driving costs up. And because this year is fairly problematic for a lot of different reasons, increase in healthcare costs, recovering from the pandemic, years of delaying construction spending. So the state's in quite a quandary here. So what they've done is removed a cap that was in Act 127. I have talked to Lauren, our superintendent, about this. Some school districts are choosing to not vote on their budget on town meeting. The legislature has given some towns some time to postpone that, to try to get budgets down. Lauren's pretty confident that our budget is what it's going to be. And so Chester will be going forward with our vote. TSRUs all will be. But this is something to watch, and education spending, I think, is going to be problematic for this year. And the legislature, when discussing 850, have really said that this is the first step in really looking at how Vermonters need to look at education spending and how we're going to go forward. So I've been staying in touch a little bit with this, as much as I can. But my feeling is if we can get education funding and the principles behind it a little bit more easily to understand, then the transparency will be increased. And that would be my hope. But as you all know, I'm one person out of 180 in Montpelier. So that's 850. The other thing that, and Julie asked me to talk about some things that may affect Chester. Of course, these both might and will. One bill that we've been working on a whole lot in my committee, the Commerce and Economic Development Committee, is H121, and that's an act related to enhancing consumer privacy. So we're looking at how our fingerprints, our irises, our DNA, how are the laws of Vermont protecting this? And it's quite interesting. It's up to about 85 pages long. I think it will impact all Vermonters who use the internet or have cell phones. And one of the parts of the bill that I really think is quite good, and by the way, there have been other states have enacted other bills like this in the past few years. We've really leaned into Connecticut's version, but made some changes of our own. California has Connecticut, I think 7, 8 other states. So there is some precedence, but state legislatures are taking this on more of how to protect personal and sensitive data, because at the federal level, we really haven't had much movement on this. The Attorney General is super supportive of it, and when it passes, if you'd like me to come and present some parts of this, I certainly will. But I think it will protect our information. One of the parts of the bill that I really like is data minimization, and that is really telling companies that if you interact with the company can't gather extra data than what they really need to perform what you would reasonably think that they were going to gather. So that's one thing, and that involves data brokers and people who are collecting all of our data to resell. So it's quite a hefty bill, but it's something that will impact us all. And then the last little bill that I decided to talk to you about was something that a constituent brought to my attention, H563, which is an act pertaining to dog discrimination. And you know I love my dogs. But I love dogs. And this one is really interesting. We've had some complaints that insurance companies are saying if you have a specific breed, that they can say that they will not cover you for property and liability insurance on, let's say, your home if you have a certain breed of dog. I've checked with DFR, which is the Department of Financial Regulation, and they regulate all of our insurance companies. And it's our practice in Vermont to have insurance companies not be able to do this, but the DFR, Department of Regulations, is looking at what we call codifying bills or codifying practices. So it is our practice that this is how we deal with insurance companies, but it's not in statute or law. So we're looking at codifying this into law so insurance companies won't be able to come and say, X breed, we won't insure a house if you have that dog. Now, if Fluffy, and at the State House, we're referring to this dog, a particular dog, as Fluffy. But if Fluffy has bitten 3 people and been aggressive, then the insurance company, of course, has the right to say that they aren't going to insure your property. So those are the things that I kind of thought were somewhat interesting. I hope it's somewhat interesting to you all. I look forward to talking to you more as time goes on when I'm not a select board member, but I'm still your legislator. And I really appreciate this opportunity. And I'm super happy that we're going to have some connection, because I think it's not only important that I tell you a little bit about what I'm doing, but I also think it's really important that you give me feedback about what's happening in Chester and your questions, and if I can find out more information for you. That's it.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks for that update, and thanks for the information. I guess you'll be getting back to us every couple of months regarding a little...
Every month?
It's really up to you. Town meeting, I'll be there, and I'll have a legislative report that will kind of go into detail on quite a few other bills for the entire the last couple months, 3 months. And then at the end of session, I'll also have a report. So I'll distribute those at town hall, and you guys will have them to distribute. And I'm available to talk to you about what's up. Julie, I think, had been saying or communicated that you'd like me here once a month. If it's once a month, great. If it's every 2 months, whatever you guys like, I will make accommodations to be here.
Thank you, Heather. Anybody on the board have any questions or they would like to ask Heather while we have her here?
I'm all set.
All set.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you.
Yep.
Heather, thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Next item is some housekeeping. We have an American Legion first class, third class liquor license and an entertainment permit to approve. I would entertain a motion to approve the American Legion first class, third class, and entertainment license.
So moved.
Second.
Ariana, motion. Lisa, second. Any discussion on it? No issues?
No.
Nothing?
Nope.
Everything's all good?
Chief has signed off on them all. Yeah.
All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
And the next item is McLoman's Pub. It's a first class, second class, and third class liquor license and an entertainment permit. I would entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second?
Leaves the motion, Ariana's a second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor of approving the licenses and the permit as stated, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Grab Jim.
Next item on our agenda, it will be an executive session to discuss the Julian Corey proceedings. And Julie just went downstairs to get our town attorney to come up
Arnie?
here to give us a little synopsis of where we stand. And then we'll be entering executive session afterwards to discuss the details of the proceedings and what their options could be as far as the town goes.
Arnie, we have number 8 on the agenda.
Oh, thank you. New business, next agendas. So while we're waiting for him, is there anything that anybody on the board would like to see for future agenda items or new business?
I don't have anything.
I'm good.
All good? The only thing that I was going to bring up are our Class 4 roads discussion, which will be coming up, I think, the second meeting in March to start discussing the Class 4 roads that are in our town. Well, it might be a minute or two, so just take a short recess until the attorney comes up.
What's that? Kids doing? Good. Yeah? Adrian? Oh, yeah? Oh, wow. You, congratulations. Boy, girl. Where are they living now? Hingham? Raynham. Oh, Raynham.
You're fine. You want to go there? Go there. No, you're fine, go there.
Okay. All right, folks, so we're going to go back in session again, please.
Those are your motions.
You could use it.
You can use this one. I'm not going to talk. No, you can. I won't be talking. Totally. I will have nothing to say during this. This is all Jim. I do not need one.
So, folks, like I stated, we're going to be going into executive session eventually to discuss the Julian Quarry, but our town attorney is here, Jim Carroll, and he's going to give us an update on where the town stands and what's going on with this issue at this point. Jim?
Thank you. And greetings, everyone. I think I recognize some some faces. So I'm Jim Carroll. Been working with the town for a while, and most recently saw at least some of you for the DRB hearings that were going on. Excuse me, I'm just catching my breath for a sec. So, as you all know, the application was withdrawn. And at that point, I've been meeting with Preston, your zoning administrator. Notice of violation has been issued in connection with the activities at all three of the quarries, north to south Chandler Road Quarry. There are a variety of issues that have been raised in the notice of violation that are to be corrected or requested to be corrected. I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to see the notice of violation, but you can certainly get a copy of it here at the town. By statute, the notice of violation is what kind of initiates the process for enforcement under the zoning bylaws. So that step has been taken. There's a 7-day period that is statutorily required to cure the violations that are stated. That 7 days has now come and gone. There's also an appeal period that then ensues, within which the landowner has the opportunity to appeal the notice of violation as an action of the zoning administrator to the DRB. That within that 15-day period, we received a notice of appeal. So at this point, with regard to the enforcement action, there will be a hearing in front of the DRB. Now, instead of on a pending application for conditional use approval or a conditional use permit, which has been withdrawn, now the hearing is going to be on whether violations exist as stated in the notice of violation. So the town will be present at the DRB hearing to assist Preston actually in putting together the hearing and the evidence and the information needed for the DRB to consider whether to uphold the notice of violation or not. And that's a process, again, that's statutorily granted. People can come and participate in that hearing process, just like the last DRB hearing process. But again, this time the issues are going to be whether a violation exists and whether or not the DRB agrees with the zoning administrator that violations exist, that they haven't been cured or need to be cured, and to make a decision based on that. The enforcement action also can go in another direction, which is directly to the environmental court. I'm here tonight to talk with Preston and with the board about that other option and whether that other option should be undertaken. What that might mean is that there's actually two separate proceedings underway in connection with the notice of violation, which at some point might get rejoined and heard together at the environmental court. That's the statutory process that we're given in connection with taking steps at enforcement. That's the one we have to follow. That's the one that the town has initiated, as in the process of pursuing. So I'm here tonight to talk with the board about some of the strategic and provide some advice about this other possible initiation of a separate complaint that would actually get filed in the environmental court. And that's something that, from my perspective, I'm advising the board, really needs to happen in executive session for the purposes of protecting the interests of the town in connection with the strategies, the advice, the costs, et cetera, of pursuing that other route and what might need to be done in connection with doing that and what the appropriate decisions are to make, to provide some advice to me as the town's attorney about how to pursue that. So all of which is to say, stay tuned in connection with the administrative proceeding that's going through the DRB. I believe that all of you will have opportunities to come and testify. You may be hearing that we would like to have you come and testify and actually provide some testimony in connection with the violations that are happening. So you may be hearing from myself or from Preston in connection with that. And you also may be hearing in connection with any hearings that might happen at the environmental court as well. And that would happen in front of an environmental judge at the Superior Court, which sometimes is held up in Chittenden, but more likely in this case would be held in Windsor County. This will take a little time, but we're going to be pursuing it as quickly as we can, as the court will allow us and the statutes will allow us, with all the notices and the requirements that are required by statute for pursuing a violation. So that's where we're at, is to make some decisions here about whether other steps should be taken in addition to the administrative process through the DRB.
Could we have a question, if we have some questions?
Sure. I'm happy to answer questions
If we can.
with the proviso that if we're getting into, in my view, kind of a strategic issue or questions, then I'm just going to be able to say, I'm sorry, I can't really answer that question, but you'll probably find out soon enough. All right? So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good evening, Rainey Melanson. And I don't need a lengthy answer, but I was curious about the DRB's, it wasn't a proclamation and it wasn't a cease and desist order, but they had 7 days to come into compliance, but they had 15 days to appeal it.
Right.
It struck me as odd.
Yeah, there's a lot about Vermont statutes that could potentially strike me as odd. This isn't necessarily that odd. What's odd about enforcement actions in front of the environmental court that go in that direction is that they have this possibility of actually initiating two different proceedings over the same notice of violation. So the statute's very clear that you have to issue, the zoning administrator has to provide a notice of violation, has to serve it. They have 7 days to cure, meaning that if they stop, if they do what the notice of violation asks, there's no enforcement action. They've stopped the violation. So that's the 7-day cure period. Once that 7-day cure period runs, and if there's evidence that they have continued, then the fines can commence. The fines and penalties start after the 7-day period. They never really get assessed ultimately until you're enforcing them in environmental court. But the fines can start to run after that 7-day period. Everyone here has a 15, if anyone here gets a notice of violation, they have 15 days to appeal that to the DRB. And that starts that administrative proceeding that many of you participated in when it was a permit application. But the context here is totally different. That they're not here seeking a permit, a conditional use approval with conditions or whatever it might happen to be. Now it's about whether they're violating the existing zoning ordinance or existing permits. And that's what the proof is going to need to be about in the upcoming hearings that are being scheduled in front of the DRB. It's the same sort of proof that will be introduced at an environmental court for the enforcement action. So the town also has the option of filing a complaint. For strategic reasons, it's good not to do that until there's some understanding of whether this notice of violation has been appealed, but that's water over the dam at this point in time. It has been appealed. So the town needs to think about whether it's going to be initiating other steps in addition to this NOV process.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was longer than 5 minutes, so I apologize for that.
And could this have been done 3 years ago?
Potentially. But again, there's a lot of strategic thinking that needs to go into what is the proper sequence for trying to deal with zoning violations. And there's a lot of thought.
But by who?
Huh?
By who?
Well, by the zoning administrator, by the town's attorney, by the board, et cetera. There's an awful lot of information that's now available. Let's put it that way.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that has any questions?
Mike Kenworthy, thank you for appearing. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
There are there's one letter that went out.
Yep.
Talking about violations. There are 3 quarries, and each of the quarries have different permitting issues. And what I get worried about, if everything's just in one big meatball and nothing gets acted on until everything in the whole meatball is taken care of, there's a simple situation with the Chandler Quarry, where about 18 months ago, they got a permit for a storage facility, and then within 3 months, they brazenly violated it by bringing rock sawing equipment in there. I don't see why, that's a local permit, why would you need an environmental court be involved or have anybody at the state or county involved, because it's a local town permit they violated?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't this town say, we issued you a permit, you violated, so you got to stop?
Right.
I mean, if I open a bar, I don't have a permit, you guys are going to come over and shut me down, right? Right? I know there are different laws with liquor, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that, but you know what I'm saying. Nobody here can understand. Nobody can understand. This board gave them a permit to build a building bigger than any other building on that area, bigger footprint. And they abused it. You guys were all nice to them, and they abused you and us. And so can't the town take care of its own mess?
Your point's well taken. However, the town, in seeking to take enforcement, doesn't have its own ability to issue a civil judgment, which ultimately is what's going to be needed to enforce a decision that's made about how much fines are done, to issue an injunction, to all the remedies that you're looking for ultimately have to come through a court. The DRB can make decisions about issuing permits. The DRB can make decisions about saying, you know what, we've reviewed this, and you're right. You are violating our zoning ordinance, you're violating your permits. And they can agree, but they're not in a position to issue a civil judgment that then gets recorded, that then can be attached, or enforcement actions can be taken against property, against people, to raise the funds that are needed, basically, or the fines, and to collect those fines. They can agree that they are assessed, but the step needs to be taken to go to the court to get a judge to issue that civil judgment.
This is a local matter. We have local policemen. They can go there and give them a summons, and we have local courts. Why do we have to go to an environmental court for that? Why?
Because that's what the statute says you have to do.
That's the law.
That's the way you get a civil judgment. DRBs...
Just because they're a quarry, are they in a special category?
No, they're not. If the same would apply to you, to anyone else who owns a piece of property. If you want a judgment and you want to enforce your zoning regulations, ultimately it passes through the DRB. They can make decisions that say, yes, I agree with what the notice of violation says, or no, I don't agree, there's no violation, but they're not in a position to issue a civil judgment.
So let me ask, this building that you just upped the $25,000 loan on, if they just turn around after they got the building, they had all fixed up, they decide to make a dance hall there, are you saying they're going to have to go through the courts, go through this, and go? to get them to not be a dance hall?
Ultimately, you have to go to the environmental court and get a civil judgment. Yeah, and that you need to talk to your legislature about. Go ahead, Lester.
We have heard no noise over there for at least a week and a half now. It is awesome. What we're looking for in the near future is a continuance of the noise, a continuance of the pollution of the Dean Brook. These people are coming back on their third week, and they've already stated they are going to use their existing permits to start up quarry number 3. Quarry number 3 processes their stone at Chandler Brook. And we all know at this point that that system they created doesn't work. It doesn't work when they're cutting stone in their unlawful factory in a building that was permitted for just equipment storage is now a factory to cut stone. The stone cutting has pollution galore going into the Dean Brook for the last 3 years. And they have not created a system to take care of that. We saw it when we all went over, some of the select board people I think were there. We saw that the system doesn't work that you created. So are we going to allow them to start up over there for another month or 2 months or another year, polluting our streams? That's not what Act 250 was all about, in my estimation. And I have read a number of times, by the way, in all this material that we've gone through, that the select board has the authority to go over and inspect whatever they want at a time that's convenient for the quarry people. And if you're not doing that, who is going to do it? We've been doing it for the last 3 years from a distance, documenting everything we needed to document. But as we go on now, a week from now when they come back and start up, who's going to do that again? The select board? The DRB? The water resources? The state of Vermont? They haven't yet in 4 years, or at least 4 years. And you know who's going to be doing it? Us. Again. For how long? We're getting tired, and I'm getting poor. Not mad yet. Where do you see mad?
Is there anyone else that has any questions or concerns they would like to address?
Barry Goodrich. Are they going to be allowed to start up when they come back? The quarry?
Yeah, we are in the process of moving to enforce the zoning regulations.
And how long is that going to take?
But that, I can't give you a date certain.
So nobody can go in and stop them if they're doing all this illegal stuff?
You know, Preston can go over and say, stop, but that's about what he can do until we get a court order, so we can start getting some fines and penalties and against the folks who
Well,
run that
like Mike
operation.
said, this has been going on for 4 years and nothing's getting done.
Okay.
It shouldn't take 4 years.
Jim, could you answer the question about Act 250 and where theirs, because a lot of these violations are Act 250 violations. Can you address where they're at in their process?
I could tell you what the status is, basically, of there is an environmental court matter currently pending. that involves a jurisdictional opinion that was issued by the local district coordinator that basically says they're in violation of their Act 250 permit. That opinion was appealed to the environmental court, and there are ongoing hearings. There's a discovery process underway in connection with that particular opinion. So there will be a hearing in front of the environmental court, which has not yet been set.
Priscilla Melanson, are we allowed to attend that hearing and
Yeah, they're public hearings,
the
absolutely.
environmental?
Yeah. And just as maybe a last statement, I expect that in the weeks that are coming up, that I will be trying to get in touch with many of you. So it may be Preston, it may be me, but we're going to be trying to get in touch with you because we'll need to prepare.
Anybody else? Thank you, Jim, for taking some questions and filling us in on
It's a pleasure.
on the procedures that are in place.
It's a job.
It's been a tough subject. It's been a hard subject,
It is.
and I
It is a
understand that
tough
you
job.
folks have been really suffering through a long time with this. We're going to try to get something done. We'll do the best we can, which is, I think, all you can expect of us. Within the law, with the statutes that we have to follow and the procedures that we have to go through.
Let me, as a caveat to that, if you miss a step, we're going back to the beginning. That's what the court's going to do. So we've got to walk through the process
All right.
as quickly as we can.
So we're going to be going into executive session, and I would entertain a motion that I move to find that the premature general public knowledge of confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services relative to the legal matter involving the Julian Quarry would place the town of Chester at a substantial disadvantage. So this first motion is just the authority for us to go into executive session. Would somebody make that motion, please?
So moved.
Heather is the motion, and a second.
I'll second it.
Please, a second. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? And now we need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 VSA Statute 313A for the purposes of receiving and discussing the town legal strategy on Julian Quarry. This motion includes inviting Attorney Jim Carroll, Town Manager Julie Hance, and Town Planner Preston Bistra.
So moved?
Second.
Ariana's the motion and Leah's the second. Any further discussion on?
Arnie,
You have a question?
Tim Roper has his hand up.
Tim Roper has his hand up.
Tim, you have a question?
Yeah, just curious whether we should expect an update after the executive session tonight or not.
I don't think there'll be action.
I would
Thank you.
expect not. I would expect it would be no action.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? We are in executive session.
Thank you, everybody.